Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. I don't remember the exact moment she said it. I just remember how stupid I felt for laughing. It wasn't even a fight. We were sitting on the couch one evening, something playing on TV we weren't really watching, and she turned to me like she was about to ask what I wanted for dinner. Completely casual. Eyes focused on her tea, voice level. "I've been thinking," she said, "maybe we should try non-physical intimacy for a while." At first, I thought she meant no sex. And honestly, I was ready for that conversation. We hadn't exactly been on fire lately. So I asked, like a break, and she shook her head. "Not just sex," she said. "All of it. Touch, closeness, that whole level of interaction. There's a belief system I've been reading about. It's about energetic cleansing." I looked at her for a moment, trying to figure out if she was joking. She wasn't. Apparently, she had come across a podcast, or maybe a video, I'm still not sure, where some woman talked about how physical affection muddied your aura. Something about partners absorbing each other's energy and the long-term damage it does to spiritual alignment. I'd never heard her talk like that before. Not in 11 years of being together. I asked her where she found this idea, trying not to sound condescending, but it came out wrong. She got defensive fast. Said it was a conscious awakening path, and I'd understand if I just listened to a few episodes or read the article she sent me. I didn't listen to the podcasts. I didn't click the links. Not out of disrespect. I just thought it would pass. I assumed it was like that yoga phase she went through last year, or the minimalist phase before that, when she tried to convince me to sell my books and stop using chairs with backs. This too would pass. That's what I thought. But she wasn't playing this time. That night, she moved to the guest room. "Just until the transition feels natural," she explained, as if we were retiling the bathroom and not dismantling our marriage one touch at a time. I didn't argue. I figured she'd come back in a few days. But then came the white noise machine, the blackout curtains, the Himalayan salt lamp. She set up a whole sanctuary in that room, complete with a journal and a jar of dried lavender. At first, I tried to stay patient. Maybe it was a coping thing. Maybe work had her stressed, or she needed space she didn't know how to ask for directly. I'd been with her long enough to know she gets lost in trends. It's always been harmless. This one just felt a little more personal. Then I started noticing the changes. She stopped wearing perfume. Said synthetic fragrance carried masculine signals. She replaced our bedsheets with organic linen, then insisted we only use separate laundry bins. Apparently my shirts carried emotional residue. The couch, the kitchen table, even the car became no-touch zones. One night, I reached over to brush a strand of hair from her face. She flinched. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't expect that." That one stung. She didn't say she didn't want it. She said she didn't expect it, as if the idea of me touching her had become foreign. Still, I didn't push. I told myself she'd come around, that it was just a phase she needed to explore. I tried to be supportive, asked how her new routines were going, asked if she wanted help sourcing all the weird herbal tinctures she was now obsessed with. She appreciated the gesture, but I could feel something shifting. She talked a lot about elevation and frequencies, about how the body could be rewired to exist without animal compulsions. It was like she was auditioning for sainthood. But the worst part? She was happier. She smiled more. Laughed more, too, but not with me. At dinner, she'd scroll through her phone, giggle at something, then tuck it away when I asked what it was. One night, I caught the name of the website, Empyrean Pathways. The tagline? Evolve your spirit. Purge your flesh. It sounded like a cult. It felt like one, too. That's when I knew this wasn't just a phase. It was a rupture. And I wasn't even sure she saw it happening. At some point, I stopped trying to touch her. I stopped leaning in for a kiss out of habit, stopped putting a hand on her lower back when we passed in the hallway. I stopped reaching for her altogether, not out of anger, but because I realized she wasn't even registering the absence anymore. It's hard to describe what that does to a person. You don't just miss the affection, you start questioning whether you imagined it ever being there. She'd filled the guest room with crystals and sound bowls by now. Every morning at 6 a.m., I'd hear her tapping on a brass singing bowl and humming through her throat like she was trying to summon something from beneath the floorboards. She journaled for hours. She carried around a stone that supposedly absorbed intimate vibrations. And the rules kept multiplying. I wasn't allowed to sit on her meditation cushions anymore. She moved her charger into her room because my electromagnetic frequency was interfering with her sleep. One night, I made the mistake of leaving a pair of my socks on her side of the laundry basket. She didn't yell or anything. She just quietly dropped them outside my office door like they were biohazard material. It wasn't anger I felt. It was slow suffocation. At dinner, she barely spoke. When I tried to engage, she'd nod politely and steer the conversation back to her practice. She talked about shedding ego, purging dependency, about merging with collective source energy. I nodded along like an idiot, pretending I understood any of it. But what really got me was how calm she was. Centered. Content, even. That was the scariest part. I asked if she wanted to do therapy. She blinked, like I'd offered her arsenic. Why would I need someone else to tell me what I already feel? She said. That's external validation. That's egoic. Egoic. That became her favorite word. Everything I did was egoic. Cooking her favorite pasta? Egoic. Suggesting we take a weekend trip together? Egoic. Even my silence, on the nights I just sat on the couch staring into nothing, was apparently me punishing her with unresolved masculine grief. She'd say it gently, like a therapist diagnosing a sick child. And then there was the community. She didn't call them that, not at first. Just others on the path. But I started recognizing names. A few women, sure. But mostly one man, Soul. Always Soul. Soul shared a breakthrough today, she'd say. Soul said I should try reframing grief as an awakening signal. Soul thought we shouldn't waste our energetic field in outdated monogamy structures. Soul believed sexual detachment made you radiant. Soul. I asked who he was. She told me he was the founder of Empyrean Pathways and one of the few people in the world who understood the divine architecture of unpartnered growth. Whatever the hell that meant. When I looked him up, I found a low-resolution headshot of a man with a gray beard, bare chest, and one of those white flowing shawls you see at spiritual retreats. He looked like a cross between a rejected yoga instructor and a guy who sells mushrooms at EDM festivals. And yet my wife talked about him like he was Moses. I dug deeper. His site offered multi-tier membership plans, virtual retreats, one-on-one mentorship sessions, and an entire page dedicated to liberated feminine initiates. That page featured photos of women, some alone, some with him, usually draped in scarves, eyes closed, hands held over their hearts. My wife wasn't there, but something about the whole vibe made my stomach tighten. When I asked if she was planning to join a retreat, she smiled and said, I already have. Twice. But not physically. Through the astral container. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said nothing and went to bed. That was when I noticed something else. Her side of the bank account was being drained, small amounts, but regular. $108, $222, $369, all with obscure names attached. EMP Path LLC, Soul Awakened, Light Body Media, the kinds of transactions that vanish into digital smoke. I asked her about it once. She didn't deny it. I contribute, she said plainly. It's part of energetic reciprocity. Energetic reciprocity. Meanwhile, I was still paying the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, and apparently financing her spiritual subscription to a man named Soul. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't happening to me. But the real shift came one morning, early March, I think, when I walked past the guest room and heard her talking. Her voice was soft, almost tender, like how she used to sound when we'd lie in bed late into the night, just whispering about nothing. But this wasn't nothing. She was on a video call, and though I couldn't see the screen, I heard her say this. I feel it more when you speak my name. Not my name. His. And she said it again, softer this time. Soul. That was the first time I felt something snap. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Clarity. Clarity's a funny thing. It doesn't roar in like a train. It clicks in, quiet and absolute. Like a lock sliding shut. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I didn't say a word about hearing her call another man's name in a voice I hadn't heard directed at me in months. I didn't ask what feeling it more even meant. I didn't want her to lie. I wanted to know the truth. Clean, unfiltered, undeniable. So I watched. She got sloppy. Comfortable. She thought I had finally accepted the path, as she liked to say now. She'd come out of her room in flowy robes, eyes half glazed from meditation, and beam at me like I was a child who finally stopped throwing tantrums. I let her think that. I let her believe I was pacified. But I was listening. I waited until she left her laptop open one night after a Zoom call. She'd gone to the bathroom, left it humming on the kitchen table like it was just any other portal into her new world. I didn't have much time, maybe 2 minutes tops. But I didn't need more than that. There was a folder minimized at the bottom, titled simply, Offerings. Clicking it opened a dozen subfolders, each one named with a different phase: receptivity, transcendence, release, embodiment, and one labeled private to soul. I opened it. The photos were blurred, intentionally, I think, but there was no mistaking her body, her tattoos, her shape. None were graphic, technically, but they didn't need to be. There was a reverence to them, like she was trying to appear holy and sensual at once. Soft lighting, gauzy filters, words scrawled beneath them in her handwriting. I release myself to your calibration. I trust the burn. I nearly dropped the laptop. She never wrote like that for me. Never whispered those things. Not once in 11 years. I heard the bathroom door unlock and closed the laptop just in time, pretending to be wiping down the counter. She smiled when she saw me, kissed me on the cheek like she was proud. You're finally letting go of control, she said. I wanted to laugh, but I just nodded. Trying, I replied. But I wasn't trying to let go. I was trying to understand just how deep this went. The next night, I found a burner Instagram account. I can't even tell you what made me look. Maybe instinct. Maybe some part of me that still hoped it wasn't what it looked like. But there it was, hidden behind a nonsense username and only followed by a few other initiates. Her profile told a story she hadn't dared share under her real name. Photos of altars, of handwritten notes, of anonymous confessions. The touch of the old world no longer holds me. I belong to no one. I open for guidance, and soul is the gate. Gate. God. In a saved story, I saw her hand reaching into frame to light a candle, then a man's voice, low and hushed. Good. Deeper now. Open for me. I don't know if he was in the room or on the screen, but I knew his voice. Soul. That same night, I checked her Venmo. Hundreds. Sent monthly. Sometimes bi-weekly. Labeled as session offerings or energetic gratitude. One note just read, for the communion last night. What the hell was communion supposed to mean? I was done pretending. So I waited for her to go on her Sunday hike, the one she always claimed was for clarity and grounding, and I dug deeper. The emails came next. Not on her main account, but an old one we used to use when planning vacations. She must have thought I'd forgotten about it. I almost had. But there it was, hundreds of messages between her and soul. Some philosophical, some abstract, but others personal. I think he suspects. He still tries to touch me sometimes, but I don't let him. I'm keeping my boundaries strong like you said. I'm ready for embodiment, but I'm not sure how to leave the life behind. Leave the life behind. That's what she called our marriage now. A life. A thing she wore like old skin. And soul's response? Your old self must die for the awakened self to live. Detach fully. I will hold you through the shedding. I sat there for hours rereading those lines. Not just because of what they meant, but because of what they implied. She wasn't just being groomed. She was planning an exit. Not a loud one. Not some screaming divorce. A slow death. She was going to starve me of connection, reframe my hurt as toxicity, and walk away clean. Spiritually justified. Probably even pitted. And this guide, this man with his open shirt and pretentious mantras, was going to take her from me while making her believe it was enlightenment. No, I couldn't stop her beliefs. Couldn't argue with her mantras. But I could take away the one thing they needed to survive: secrecy. It was time to act. There's a kind of rage that doesn't come out in yelling. It doesn't throw plates or slam doors. It sharpens, focuses, plans. That's the kind of rage I carried when I stopped being her husband and became her shadow. I didn't confront her. I didn't storm in waving screenshots. That would have given her control of the narrative. She'd twist it into an attack, say I was jealous, insecure, unevolved. She already had the language ready. I'd be the masculine resistance to feminine expansion. I wasn't going to give her the gift of victimhood. I needed her exposed. Not to me. To the people who still thought she was enlightened. The friends she journaled with. The followers who liked her crystal-drenched selfies. The ones who shared her posts about liberation from obligation. So I started collecting. Every email she'd sent to Soul from that hidden inbox, I forwarded them to myself and saved the attachments. Voice notes from him? Downloaded. Her burner account posts? Screenshotted. The money trail? Screen recorded. I even found a PayPal receipt labeled Divine Feminine Mentorship, Full Access. Full access. I didn't want to know what that meant. I built a folder. I labeled it Clarity. Fitting. But I needed more. Her little digital paper trail was damning, but it wasn't crushing. Not yet. What I needed was something live. Something real-time. So I ordered a phone. Cheap, prepaid, untraceable. I named the contact River and used it to message her through one of the encrypted apps I found in her list of downloads. I posed as a new follower, male, curious about the energy work she was offering. She bit within hours. The conversation escalated faster than I expected. She told me I had the imprint of a fractured protector. She offered to guide me into surrender. By the third message, she was quoting Soul back to me, word for word. On the fourth, she sent a voice note. It was soft, delicate, whispering about the body being a temple of wisdom, about letting go of skin-bound identity. I can help you release, she said. I stopped listening after that. I sent the clip to 3 people, her boss, her sister, and the administrator of her Empyrean Pathways Facebook group. No message. No explanation. Just a file called release.mp3. Then I waited. The collapse began slowly. First came the texts. Her sister, call me right now. Then her boss, we need to discuss your role here. She tried to act normal for a few days. Said she was experiencing spiritual interference and needed to fast from electronics. But the damage was already chewing through the walls. The next weekend, I overheard her on a call, muffled, but frantic. I don't know who sent it. Soul, they used a fake name. I've deleted everything. It wasn't sexual, it was instructional. No, I didn't cross any lines. She hung up shaking. For the first time in months, she looked like she was in this world again. Not above it. Not floating on some light body frequency. Just scared. Small. She still didn't know it was me. And I wasn't done. Because while she was spiraling, I was tracking Soul. Turns out the enlightened spiritual guide had been banned from 2 other platforms under different names. Same rhetoric, same structure, female followers, layered access, financial contributions in exchange for alignment. I found a YouTube channel from 2018 where he got called out during a live seminar for allegedly pressuring an attendee into embodied offerings in exchange for ascension guidance. It didn't go viral, but it existed. I uploaded the video to her favorite online community under a fake account. Captioned it, "This your guru?" Within hours, the comments turned. She tried to defend him. Posted something about the dark trying to sabotage the light. But no one was buying it. One of her own followers replied with a screen recording of her calling Soul the divine anchor of her surrender. She went silent. I heard her sobbing that night. Real sobbing. The kind you do when the air around you shifts and you realize you're alone in a way you can't reverse. Part of me wanted to feel bad. I didn't. Because she wasn't crying about me. She was crying because her little stage had collapsed. The spotlight was gone. Her script didn't work anymore. And now, with no one left to blame, no one left to lean on, and no online tribe chanting her affirmations, she had to face something raw. The very thing she'd been avoiding the whole time. Herself. She didn't come out of the guest room for 2 days. I heard her pacing sometimes. Shuffling around in those soft, ceremonial robes she once wore like armor. She didn't light her candles. Didn't chant. No singing bowl. The silence in that room felt louder than anything I'd heard in months. I didn't knock. I let her sit in the ruins of her own design. Meanwhile, I was tying the final knot. The Empyrean Pathways site had been taken down temporarily. Damage control. Soul had posted a vaguely poetic message on a different platform about false initiates and energetic sabotage. He blamed the distorted masculine. I smiled reading that. It always came back to the same trick. Make yourself the victim of reality when it finally slaps you in the face. The Facebook group splintered. Some of the women defended him blindly. Others demanded accountability. A few even reached out to me, anonymous messages thanking whoever exposed what was going on. One of them confessed she'd sent thousands over the years. Said her marriage was just now beginning to recover. But I didn't respond. That wasn't why I did it. I wasn't interested in being anyone's savior. Just in not being the fool anymore. 3 days later, she emerged. Hair messy, eyes rimmed red, a blanket wrapped around her like she'd been living in ice. She didn't say anything at first. Just stood in the doorway of the kitchen, watching me pour coffee like I wasn't someone she'd once sworn eternity to. Finally, she asked, "Did you do it?" I didn't pretend. Yes. She stared at me for a long time, then nodded. Not with anger. Not even sadness. Just acceptance. I deserved it, she whispered. I didn't answer. What was there to say? Yes, she did. But that wasn't the point. It wasn't about vengeance. It was about equilibrium. For months, she made me feel like I was holding her back. Like intimacy, love, touch, connection, everything that made us real was poison to her evolution. She rewrote our history so she could be the hero of her own ego. And when she found someone who validated that fantasy, she gave him what used to belong to us. It didn't matter whether they touched. They connected. And they plotted to cleanse me from her life. So, I did the one thing she didn't think I had in me. I took it all away. Not out of hatred. Out of resolve. She moved out 2 weeks later. No screaming. No messy drama. She packed her things like she was leaving a retreat that hadn't worked out. Her new sanctuary was across town in some studio with houseplants and incense and light pouring in through gauzy curtains. She left me a note on the kitchen table. Just 4 words. Thank you for clarity. I burned it in the sink. She tried to reach out a few times after. Nothing romantic, just fragments. Links to a new blog. A voice memo about how she's healing. But I ignored all of it. She'd spent months telling me I was a block to her energy. So I finally became one. A wall. Permanent. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. But there was another path I could have taken. If I'd confronted her that night she whispered Soul's name on the call, if I had marched in and demanded answers like some desperate fool, I'd have played right into her script. She'd have spun it into control, said I was suppressing her truth, cried on camera to her community. I would have looked like a brute. She would have left glowing, with Soul waiting in the wings to catch her. I'd be the villain. The masculine threat. The warning story in her next post. I've often imagined a different outcome, one where I did nothing at all. Where I stayed quiet. Stayed patient. Let her drift further into that fog while I stayed in the house, alone but supportive. Maybe she would have left eventually. Maybe not. Maybe I'd just fade into the role she cast for me, provider, obstacle, relic. I'd grow old next to a woman who believed touching me was an act of spiritual regression. A ghost living beside her shrine. That might have been the cruelest ending of all. But this was the version I could live with. She got what she wanted, and I got what I deserved.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.